there's the process of the mind, which is feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. Those together are what we generally call the mind, or the mental activities. Consciousness being the sort of the main one, but feeling, perception, and volition, they're the activities that drive the mind, the conditioned activities. So basically, the purification of view, it divides everything into name and form, including our own self. We have a physical body, but somewhere inside our brain, or we imagine there's this mind working. But we normally take it for me and myself. And so the average view of the average person coming out of Walmart or something, they think that, there's so-and-so, they have a name and they live in a house in a certain place and they belong to a certain race or religion or group, and, they identify with that, a male or female. And in all the things of the world, they just went in and, bought so many things in Walmart and that they wanted. And so, they think all these things are, real, or the world revolves around just me and living in this world where you're born, you grow up, you live a certain age, you die, and you might do a lot of things in between, and after death you have some belief of what's going to happen. But basically, the average belief is just that, I have this body and mind, we were born, and we're going to die, and that's about it. But in the samadhi, in the right view, as you're developing understanding, we divide our life into these are material forms and these are the mental reactions. The average person thinks that they're just doing everything. Oh, I'm deciding this, I'm doing that, and take all these various things that we experience as being real entities. And that's what keeps their mind bound in this subject-object relationship. They see everything as from the skin inward as me and I. And they see everything from the skin outwards as the other and they. And there's a constant, tug of war between between the inner and the outer. And people take all that to be very, very real. And, it leads them to, of course, as we all know, every types of crime and wars and everything else is based on this limited viewpoint about life. But from the Buddhist point of view, Buddha took a more deeper level of life. The Buddha was like a scientist. And he used meditation as a kind of a scientific experiment to find out really what is this mind made up of? How does it operate? How does our experience of the world come to be? And in that experience, he saw that basically the external world is a projection of the mental activities within. And he saw that basically our mental process is just a process of mind recognizing matter and in a sequence of just impermanent mental states. And so the view of nama rupa, that the whole life is just It's based on what's coming through the senses, moments of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking that are coming and going at a very in rapid sequence. And it's basically also, the Buddha defined material matter as just basically vibrations. And even this physical body is comprised of the elemental vibrations of solidity, fluidity, motion, and heat. And these are basically like vibrations. Now this is kind of hard for the ordinary person to understand, and that's why it's part of Dhamma. It's not, it's even though Western science might also give lip service to the fact that material matter is also just is basically, this body is comprised of millions of cells, and cells are comprised of many, many molecules. Molecules are comprised of many, many atoms. And atoms are comprised of even, electrons, and neutrons, protons, and all these other, scientific terms that hardly anybody understands. But anyway, basically it boils down to, the number of electrons revolving around an atom gives that atom its kind of properties, isn't it? If anybody knows chemistry or physics, an electron is basically just energy, electricity, that's it. And so in the deepest analysis, this physical matter is just condensed energy. So it takes billions and billions of, electrons and atoms and molecules that make up, a unit of a cell, which is the smallest unit, and you get invisible even. So there's a lot of compactness in that. And so it appears solid to us, but under the microscope, of course, we can see that it's not. So anyway, this is an aspect of right view. And it's important later on. You may not understand it right now, but hopefully as we go on. So basically all matter is a vibration. And especially in our meditation, when we practice vipassana meditation. In fact, the term vipassana meditation means seeing reality as it is. So one of the first objects of mindfulness meditation is the body. And so we, investigate the body and, what is it made of? So your eyes are closed, so you're not seeing anything. So how do you know that you have a body? Anybody stop to ask that question? No one, the average person would never stop to ask that question. But your eyes are closed, you're sitting down. How do you know you have a body? I got a pain in my butt! Right? So there's a feeling there. So it draws your mind down, and because of that, excuse my French, but so you, the mind's attracted to a sensation, and you identify it as that's my buttocks pressing the floor, or that's my two hands, but your eyes are not open. You identify it because of a vibration. The clothes touching your skin, the air striking the tip of your nostrils, your lips touching together, an itch. All these are just basically sensory or tactile vibrations. We call sensations, but I like to use the term vibration. And so from the mental point of view, that is how the idea of body arises. Because you have all these different sensations, like the buttocks pressing the floor, the hands touching together. Now, the vibrations of the buttocks are different than the vibrations of your hands. And that's different than the vibrations of your rib cage going in and out. or of any of your toes or your ear, or virtually every part of the body. When you feel anything, that all the mind can feel is a vibration. But because of past experiences and language and learning, we've learned to give names and labels to these things, to the vibrations. And so every time you feel a similar type of vibration, the mind remembers that vibration and calls it this or that. And not only the physical body, but also sounds. In meditation, your eyes are closed and you hear a sound. And what happens in the mind when you hear a sound? Doesn't a little name or label pop into your mind? Oh, that's the teacher coughing, or that's the dog barking, that's a plane flying overhead. It's just a sound vibration. So from the Dhamma point of view, because again, we're interested in what is the nature of suffering and how does suffering arise. We don't care if the external world exists or not. That's not important. We're interested in how it arises in our mind, because that's where we live, in the mind. How our mind is creating its ideas about the external world. So this is very important for the development of right understanding and for the purification of view. So we have the six senses, and basically what we experience are sound vibrations coming through the ear, visible vibrations coming through the eye, odor vibrations through the nose, flavors through the tongue, tactile sensations through the body, either touched on the external surface or coming from inside the body. You've got pain, kidney pain or something. And how the mind is perceiving those. And so the first aggregate is basically what I prefer to call the vibrations aggregate, because basically all those physical vibrations fall into those categories of some of those things feel solid, like when you press your thumb on your arm or the buttocks press on the floor, that's a solid feeling. So we call that solidity. Solid vibration. But if you have a tear of water running down your eye, that's a fluid vibration. So we call it the water element, or the fluid vibration. You feel saliva in your tongue, or you got a sweat coming down, or you got snot coming out of your nose. So these are fluid sensations. But it's all, it's still just material vibrations. But they manifest as something being solid, something fluid, something movement, and temperature. So those are called the four elements. So all physical matter falls into those vibrations. So that's how we identify things. You feel some solid thing and you call it, that's my this or that. Or you have a burning sensation in your stomach, you call it stomach pain. Or if you belch or let some air out the backside, make a sound, the air element. There's the air coming out. And then there's sound element. And the odor element. Everything is broken down into elements. So from the Dhamma point of view, that's the way that the Buddha broke it down as part of the right view, is that everything is just basically vibrations and elements. And then there's the mind that's reacting to it. So all these vibrations have a feeling tone to them. So the material vibrations, they either produce an effect of a pleasant feeling, or a painful feeling, or a neutral feeling. So this pertains to all 6 senses. So with the body, when you meditate, you can feel painful feelings, of course, right? But how many people felt some pleasant sensations? And then there are probably even more just neutral sensations. Things you get so used to, the mind doesn't even pay attention to them. They're kind of just hanging out in the background, but they don't mean much. But it's the painful and pleasant ones that we get attached to. So we develop greed and attachment for the pleasurable feeling, and aversion and hatred toward the painful feelings. And so every object has a feeling that's connected with it. So that's why it's called the aggregate of feelings. I'm talking about the 5 aggregates, which forms the basis of right view. It breaks down the world of experience into just the 5 aggregates of the material vibrations or form, and then the feelings that arise with the contact, because of the contact in the nervous system and the senses. These feelings arise within the nervous system. And so all sounds, the sounds produce a pleasant or a painful or a neutral feeling. Same with odors, flavors, again, tactile, and even our thoughts, because you have pleasant memories, painful memories. And so basically everything is broken down into sensations in terms of these physical vibrations. And so basically everything is just vibrations. Because if a person was blind, they wouldn't know anything about the external world. They would just be feeling a lot of vibrations. We might tell them, oh, that's an elephant, and that's a house, and that's a tree, and that's this. But without that, they wouldn't know anything. So the names and labels that we give to objects, these are the perceptions. This is the 3rd aggregate of perception. And it's based on memory and how we've learned since we were a baby language. So, the baby sees something and the mother says, oh, that's grandpa, or that's grandma, or that's daddy, that's Fido, that's brother, that's sister. And then the mind starts identifying that particular vibration now with a name. Otherwise it meant nothing to the baby. And I've given this talk about how the baby's mind gradually gets caught up in desires and aversions and other talks, but I'm not going to repeat it right now. But so it's the perception aggregate that's probably one of the important ones, because the perceptions are the way the mind creates a seemingly solid object out of what essentially is a vibration. Now, you looking up here, okay, you might see this form, but you also see some other things around too, right? But what causes you to single out this form? Because there's some interest or focus, right? But nevertheless, there's other things around too. So it's the perception that takes those particular vibrations and creates an image that stands out from the other things. Otherwise, this would all be a linear, one-dimensional thing. But perception, because of attachment, it picks out those molecules and atoms of a particular color and shape and creates an image that then looks different than the other ones. And then we get focused on that, and the mind gets attached to that. And, everything else gets triggered off. But that's the process of perception, creating seemingly solid objects out of basically empty vibrations. And this is very, very important for understanding delusion. Actually, it's one of the important elements of understanding illusion also, how illusions and delusions are created. Now, even scientists and ophthalmologists and eye doctors will tell you that that's how the eye operates too. But no one, cares to take that any deeper, and they say, "Oh, yeah, okay, give me that." The perceptions aggregate is very important. That's why in Vipassana meditation, part of the training is when you hear something, you just recognize, hearing, or just sound vibration. You try to refrain from calling it an individual object, because what's coming through your ear is just a sound vibration. But you can see the mind and trying to remember, what is that? Oh yes, that's it. And you can see that perception pop in the mind, if you're very concentrated. And so the same with other things. Maybe you're sitting there and a smell comes by. So it's a smell vibration. Maybe somebody lets some air out of the backside, and so there's this, then the mind reacts to that unpleasant feeling. It reacts, it knows what that is, that's this and that kind of an odor. And then, why did that person do that? And it triggers off all kinds of thoughts, right? The mind gets carried away. But because you're taking that odor to be something that you're creating, the mind is creating something bad out of what is essentially just invisible atoms. Basically, the vibration. You get my drift? This is very, very important for developing understanding and part of right view. That the world is just vibrations. And we're talking from the mental point of view. We're not denying that an external world, but that doesn't matter because we live in our mind. It's our mind that is creating our idea of the world. And that's the only thing we can change, is the way our mind is, projects. So we have the material vibration. Those vibrations produce pleasant, painful, or neutral sensations, and then the mind categorizes them, objectifies them into the various multitude of external objects. We look around, immediately we know everything. It's plant, flower, wall, because it's doing that at the speed of a supercomputer. And you all know what a photograph is, right? It's just many pixels. And if you have a photograph with a high density of pixels, then that picture becomes very clear and very, the more pixels it has, the more clear it is, right? But when it has less pixels, it gets fuzzy. And then it becomes distorted even less and less when you zoom in on an object, right? It then loses its clarity. So it's the same way our mind is doing that too. And so it's only because of our focus and interest in the object that condenses it into a lot of pixels, and that person's body stands out because we're pausing to focus on it. But if you're not pausing to focus because of either some kind of attachment or purpose, then the mind won't create that. And therefore the reactions won't come also. So the next aggregate is the mental formations. And that basically, to keep it simple, it's the reactions to the perceptions. And these are based on our habits. So it means you see a perception and then desire arises, or aversion arises, or it triggers off some action like an itch. You feel an itch and you immediately want to reach up and scratch it. So it's basically our reactions to perceptions. Again, and these have been accumulated since the time of, since we were a baby, and even from previous lives too. The way we reacted to things in the past, these are all remembered within the unconscious mind as what are called sankhara. And so it's these sankharas that are reacting to things, not us or I. And it's the perceptions that are perceiving things, not me or I. We're not doing that. It's an automatic process occurring within the mind. And even the feelings are just being recreated in the mind. We're not, actively involved in that. Oh, we're actively involved in reacting and re-strengthening them, but not for the actual arising of it. So the sankharas, mental formations, are a very big, vast category. But to keep it simple, I like to just say it's the reactions we have to things. Like a smell goes by. So it's a physical, even mental reaction. And all the thoughts that are triggered off, why did they do that? I shouldn't. All of our peripheral thoughts, these are all belong to mental formations. Or the formations generally, even the physical reactions. And again, these are habits that we go on continually repeating and re-strengthening unmindfully. And so every single habit that we have is basically these sankharas, and they've arisen because of our clinging to perceptions as being real. That person did this or that to me. Instead of seeing as, it's just nama rupa. We'll get back to that in a minute. So we have the mental formations, or the reactions aggregate. I prefer to call it just the reactions aggregate. The reactions to the perceptions. And then consciousness. And that's probably the most difficult of all to understand. But basically, the consciousness is the knowing faculty. It's sort of like the light that allows you to see things in the room. If this was a pitch black room, then you wouldn't see any forms in this room. But when you flip the light on, you're seeing things. So it's consciousness that allows us to actually have perceptions. You can see it as basically the light. But we take that consciousness to be I and me and mine. So we think I am the hearer. There's hearing. Consciousness is divided into 6 categories: hearing consciousness, seeing consciousness, smelling, tasting, feeling, and mind consciousness. And these are basically just mind moments that arise because of contact and fall away. So name and form means the form, a sound, touches the ear, and immediately feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness arises to name that form. It's the nama, what's called nama. In Pali, the terms are nama rupa. Rupa means the physical vibration of the 6 senses. And nama gives it its name. And that includes its memory. So the feeling identifies that as an unpleasant object. And that is a dead dog laying in the road, where you see it, aversion. You smell that odor, aversion. And the reaction, like, oh, that smell. And then the consciousness taking that to be real and yourself to be real. I am smelling that. You see, all that comes to play in just that quick. So it's called mind recognizing matter. And it comes together at the moment of contact. And if we don't focus on it or hold on to it, it vanishes. And even if we do hold on to it, it keeps occurring over and over and over again, millions of times within even a second. So we don't see the impermanence of it. And we think it's real, and we think myself is real. But so basically, the right view, purification of view, is defining the world as just mind and matter, nama rupa. That our experience is just nama rupa, moments of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking that are just coming and going at a very rapid pace. And within that, there's no I or doer or owner or controller. It's all happening basically on its own through the past force of the past karma. And so to start viewing or understanding everything in terms of that. Well, that's hearing vibration. But if you recognize it as a plane comes into your mind, that's perception. And so the training in Vipassana, in developing the right view, is understanding that our world of experience, again, we're talking about how our mind creates the world, because this is where we live and this is where delusions are created. And this is the process of delusions being created. It's the world creating process. But we take it as I, me, and mine, and identify ourselves and those objects as being real. But even those objects are just vibrations. So actually, when you see a pleasant food and you see a nice chocolate cake, and you want to eat that, basically you're eating your mind. Because it's just the idea of chocolate cake having a nice taste.